Hubby and I together for 8 years, married for 2. I'm nearing on 3 months pregnant, so the 12-week scan is coming up, and if everything is looking good, we'll be announcing soon to our family and friends. Exciting. Nobody else knows. Only issue is, my brother-in-law is extremely obnoxious and competitive, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with his behavior, which I suspect is about to escalate. To paint the picture, he and his wife, 30 female, have twin girls, 1.5 female. We were very happy for them when they fell pregnant, have babysat, done our best to give them really thoughtful gifts for birthdays and Christmas, helped entertain and watch them on family outings, and things like that. But the truth is, neither of us have felt 100% comfortable with the little ones because generally, brother-in-law and his wife are very self-entitled, judgmental, and critical. It just feels like you have to walk on eggshells around them in life, and it has been this way even before their children were born. It's just this general unease, and as a result, maybe we don't fuss over the girls as much as they would like. Brother-in-law has previously been really aggressive and demanded that my husband come around and clean his house, because he's done nothing to help since the girls came along, which is not true, and has made some other fairly outrageous demands, which hubby has pretty much ignored due to them being ridiculous. Whilst I appreciate that being new parents and having twins is challenging, and they are under a lot of stress, it was their decision to have kids, and they seem to think that everyone else should be altering their lifestyles to accommodate kids too. And they aren't without help. The grandparents are always around assisting. They've said we are not ready for children, because we clearly aren't interested in their kids. They've gone around saying this to a lot of people, which is really hurtful in general, particularly as I feel neither of them have bothered to get to know me as a person and make such a claim. Brother-in-law constantly makes comments such as, "I can't wait until you have kids so you see how hard it is. Just you wait, and you guys have no idea," in a pretty nasty condescending tone. These comments are always unprovoked. We have never commented on their parenting ability, and we are super accommodating and understanding of their routine and schedule, etc. We always do all we can to not make their lives any more complicated. I think brother-in-law went into their pregnancy pretty uneducated in general, and I think a lot of his frustration stems from how unprepared he was for the lifestyle change. I think he is projecting. Hubby and I are generally really passive people, and choose to ignore it for the most part, or awkwardly laugh it off. I've spoken to him about this, and he thinks ignoring his brother's temper tantrums is for the best. Basically, I just want some help in handling some of these comments, and the fact I think they'll escalate once the pregnancy is announced. He's been shaming us publicly for a while in front of family and family friends for not understanding how hard it is having kids, and I'm a bit tired of feeling like a doormat. I understand his comments stem from his own frustration, but often his wife joins in, and I just find it really unnecessary and like a slap in the face, given how considerate we try to be. We're pretty confident that things will turn into, "Oh, just imagine how hard that is with 2," and I feel like it is only going to get worse from here on out. It's not a competition. This is a happy time, and I'm just sick of them crapping on both of us. I don't want this to extend into him comparing his children to ours, or worse. Any advice on how I can shut down these comments in a graceful way? Or is my hubby right? Should we just continue to ignore their behavior? First of all, if it wasn't children, your brother-in-law would still be harassing you about something. He's one of those kind of people. Second, it's time to stop being passive, and it's time to go full-on mama bear. This means you protect your family, especially your children, from this jerk. You and your husband need to draw a line in the sand about what kind of behavior is off limits. If your obnoxious brother-in-law and sister-in-law consistently step over that line, then you need to severely limit your contact with them. You haven't mentioned your relationship with your mother-in-law or father-in-law, but if it's good, I suggest enlisting them to help set limits on how brother-in-law can act at family gatherings. If they don't help or allow brother-in-law to act out in front of your child, then they forfeit having their grandchildren around. I was always overweight growing up. I had severe anxiety and depression, but also felt a lot of pressure to be a perfect student, and I self-medicated with food and a few other self-harming behaviors. My parents were kind, but oblivious. Neither have any personal experience with mental illness, but they both have overweight siblings, and I think their reasoning was just, some people are overweight. I thought once I moved out of my parents' house and had more control, I'd be able to focus on losing weight. But I was in a very high-pressure program, and the stress of trying to keep it together with my anxiety and depression made weight loss fall to the wayside. I ended up graduating at 325 pounds at 5 foot 9 inches, and not being able to attend my graduation because of anxiety. I realized that I'd put it off too long and sought out therapy and a nutritionist. Within the first 6 months, I found a great therapist, found a medication that worked for me, and lost 50 pounds. A few months later, I met my fiancé, Ben, and a local cycling group. He was funny, smart. He graduated from the same business program as me 4 years earlier. Handsome, and above all, just a really cool person. We clicked right away, and my weight wasn't an issue. He was obviously attracted to me, and was supportive of my health fitness goals, without stressing about my appearance. A little over 2 years after we started dating, he proposed, and I accepted. At that point, I was down to my current weight of 140 pounds. It was now a year later, and our wedding is next month, on the 3-year anniversary of us meeting. The trouble started about 9 months ago, when I asked his sister Lisa, 30 female, to be in my bridal party. We get along well but aren't super close because she lives in another state. While we were on the phone, she got very serious and asked me if there was any way we could do dress shopping and fittings without her mother. I get along fine with my soon-to-be mother-in-law and father-in-law, but I know how a parent-child relationship can be, so I said I'd try to arrange that for her. No questions asked. She said I should talk to Ben about their parents if I wanted more details, and I said I would. So, I approached Ben, and he told me that his parents are really uptight and overbearing about weight and fitness. They are both thin and active, and his father is a doctor, a psychiatrist. Neither Ben or Lisa have ever been overweight by the medical definition, but Ben told me that they watched Lisa's weight like a hawk starting around puberty when she was a little chubby, kept a lock on their fridge, made her count calories, etc. Eventually, she developed anorexia and struggled with it for years, having to drop out of college for inpatient treatment. She's been in recovery for about 8 years now, but her relationship with her parents is strained. Hearing that, I can absolutely understand why she wouldn't want her mom at a dress fitting. Then, Ben dropped a bomb. He told me offhand that when his parents first met me, I was around 220 at that point. His parents spent months trying to pressure him to go to therapy for his issues, since he was dating an obese woman. They basically thought dating me was a form of self-sabotage, or that he must have low self-esteem since he was dating a fat woman. He tried to ignore it and eventually gave them an ultimatum that this subject was off the table if they wanted to be in contact with him. I was shocked. I had not noticed anything amiss, and they were always polite to me. The only indication that something was weird was a few months before our proposal. I'd actually gotten down to 125 pounds, and I posted a picture on Facebook comparing myself at 325 to 125 and talking about mental health stuff. His mother commented, "Looking great. What is your goal weight?" At the time, I interpreted that as maybe her thinking I'd lost too much weight, which was the general consensus. I had gotten that number stuck in my head because losing 200 pounds seemed more of a big milestone than losing 185 pounds. But I wasn't happy at that weight, and am much happier at 140 pounds. I've noticed that she asks if I'm still on that diet when I see her, but I just thought she was making conversation. Now I'm pretty sure that she sees me going back up to 140 pounds as a failure in my diet, and thinks I'll get fat again. I'm not sure how to proceed from here. My communication with my own parents has become very transparent and honest since I started therapy, and we've become closer because of it. I know how to talk to them. I don't know how to talk to these people, and I'm inclined now to see them as obsessive, nitpicky jerks. I obviously can't ban them from the wedding, but I'm preemptively worried about the safety of my overweight friends around them. I'm fine with limiting communication with them, but thinking about the future, I absolutely would never want those people alone with our future children after hearing about how they treated Lisa. I don't know what to do here. Do I confront them and give them an ultimatum like Ben did? Do I have that power as daughter-in-law? Is this ever going to be okay? Honestly, it sounds like Ben has done a great job of handling this, and I just leave it at that. Now you know they're like this, so you can do whatever you need to do to take care of your mental health. Not bring up certain topics, filter Facebook posts, whatever. I don't think confronting them would do any good if they just essentially drove their own daughter into an eating disorder. Just do what you can to avoid giving them opportunities to comment. If they do comment, just be prepared with a line, depending on personality. "I'm not sure what you mean by that." Or perhaps, "Wow, that was very rude," and walk away. So, a few years back in college, Sarah was going through a really rough patch in her life. She had lost her mother to cancer, and her younger brother acting out because of it, and nothing was really going right for her. My friend David and I had become friends with Sarah in college. We would eat lunch with her a couple times a week, text occasionally, and we had a few classes together. I liked Sarah, cared for her a lot, but with everything that was going on in her life, I didn't feel the timing was right to ask her for a relationship. When all that went down, I decided that I would write her a letter to cheer her up. Thought it would be a nice gesture because I was always better writing things down. I minored in English. I thought maybe it would help her out a little bit, and at the same time, I could tell her that I would always be there for her if she ever needed someone. By the time I finished, it looked much more like a confession rather than a pick-me-up letter, but I felt good about it and I knew Sarah liked these types of things. David saw the letter before I gave it to her. It was sitting on the table and he read a couple lines of it and asked who it was for. I told him my idea, and that's when he told me that he liked Sarah as well. He had planned on asking her out once her life settled down. We were pretty close in high school, not best friends, but I dated his sister for 2 years. Bad move on my part, and it ended poorly, and we had some fallout. I didn't cheat on her or anything, but I was a bit selfish. I was a senior and she was a sophomore. I wanted to call it off or go casual, just a fun relationship since I was off to college soon, and she wanted us to work. David and I fell out for a bit after that. We met back up in college, but he always kind of held it over my head that I treated his sister poorly, or that the breakup was unfair. Which is understandable. I was an idiot for dating her in the first place, since I knew I didn't want anything more than a fling. Long story short, he guilts me into giving him the letter to give to Sarah. He said that I owed him one, and that he would call us even after that. I regret it, but at the time, I was still beating myself up over a past relationship. 3 or 4 weeks after he gave her the letter, they started dating, and I just kind of faded out of their lives. I put distance between us because it sucked. I was very bitter and angry. They got on to get engaged 10 months ago according to Facebook. Sarah out of the blue texts me and asks me about one of my recent blogs. I didn't even know she read my blogs. It's about my thoughts on love and relationships. She asks if I've ever written something like that before. I told her I wrote a few in high school. I didn't know at the time, but apparently she treasures that letter. She says it was like the catalyst that got her life back on track. She brings it up often to David, but of course he hates it. One day, they get into a fight, basically that he doesn't act or do anything that is on the letter. I miss the guy who wrote this letter for me. I don't know what David said, but Sarah meets up with me later in the week, confronts me with the letter. She said that based on how David acts about the letter every time she brings it up, and the style of how my blogs read, that she knows he didn't write it, and that I was the one who wrote the letter for him. I tried to lie my way out of it, but really, I don't think I had a choice. She wouldn't take no for an answer, so I told her everything, about my feelings, about why I wrote it, and how David ended up with it. She is upset, very upset, and tells me that she hates me to the core, but then thanks me, and that once her life is settled down again, that she would reach out to me again. That same day, she breaks off their engagement. I get a call from David, and he is totally crazy, angry, yelling at me, that I sabotaged his relationship, and that I did it on purpose, and I couldn't ever let them get married. A bunch of other stuff. He's mad, and it's understandable. But then he starts telling our mutual friends his version of the story, and I'm getting hateful texts and comments on my blogs from people about it. That was nearly 3 weeks ago, and I'm still getting ghosted by my friends and his. It's getting ridiculous. At this point, I'm beginning to doubt myself. Is what I did wrong? Should I have tried better to lie for David? I feel like regardless of what I told her, she would have believed her initial thought that he didn't write that letter, and that he fell short of her expectations. Why would you accept blame? Your friend was fine with lying to his girlfriend, fiancé, for 3 years about something that was important to her. Don't see how that is on you. So you let him use the letter. She fixated on it, and even after they were engaged, he never did anything else worthy of her attention or praise to turn that letter into a nice memory. She confronted you without your input, and you didn't lie. Exactly what did you do wrong other than to let your friend do what he asked to do, and then tell the truth when confronted? Sure, there is more emotional stuff about this, but quite frankly, he tanked his own relationship and didn't need your help to do it.